Earlier today, Treyarch's lead game designer, Kevin Drew, tweeted out something. This isn't specifically about Cold War, this isn't specifically about Vanguard or anything, it's just a general game development tweet, but I want to talk about it. Video game development is complex, just like any entertainment industry. It is very rare that a single individual is responsible for the success of a game. It takes many talented people to create something special. Even with an amazing team, there are circumstances beyond their control that can impact a game. Development time, budget, and meeting consumer demands, to name a few. Ultimately, that should not matter to the person playing the game. As the consumer, it is their right to play it and form an opinion, negative or positive, and voice that. What troubles me is when people claim that the developers have no passion for the game they work on. This could not be further from the truth. Having gone through that many times over the years, they are likely taking that criticism the hardest as they reflect on the unique challenges of that project and how they can do better. Regardless of the circumstances, we always want people to enjoy the things we make. This is a great tweet. This is an incredibly wise, well-spoken, mature, and just great tweet, something we don't see on Twitter all that often. Like I said, he's not talking about Vanguard, he's not talking about anything in particular, he's just talking about game development, but I think a lot of these things could be applied to Vanguard zombies and Cold War zombies and just the state of the game right now. First and foremost, it's not one person's responsibility for a success or failure. Oftentimes we can anthropomorphize big companies like Treyarch, Activision, and all this stuff. This runs the risk of letting them be more villainous and less human. It's really important to keep in mind that these big companies, these big development studios, they're just full of people trying to do the best they can, trying to do the best job that they can. It's not fair to put a blanket statement on anyone. Treyarch, Sledgehammer, even Activision, it's not fair. That being said, in short form, it's a lot easier to get the broad strokes down to say, hey, this development team did this studio said that. It's a lot easier for communication. However, and we will continue to do this, it's just how we communicate. This isn't going to change anytime soon. I'm not saying we should change how we talk about these companies or anything, but it's important to know and understand and comprehend and appreciate the nuance of these companies and these interactions and the development of anything, any product. He says, even with an amazing team, it can be difficult due to development time, budget, and meeting consumer demands. This basically, if you want it to, confirms what we've suspected about Vanguard zombies. Obviously, we've all been very worried for Treyarch and their development time, but something he said, this budget thing, just blew my mind because, because this isn't their game. Like, they don't have the budget in their studio to make another game. So are they using Sledgehammer's budget? Are they going to ask for more money from Activision? Like, budget is something I had no thought of when making these games. So for him to put that out is just one of those examples of like, yeah, the consumer doesn't always think of all the variables it takes to develop a game. And of course, meeting consumer demands, we can apply this to Vanguard zombies, meaning like, hey, we want round-based maps, hey, we want this type of perk system, hey, we want this, that, and the other thing. So that sort of thing. Now I'm going to keep saying this because I want to hammer this point home. I don't think he's talking about Vanguard zombies. I think he's just talking about development in general. But if we apply this, if we read between the lines, we could essentially get from this that developers aren't always happy with the product they make either. And this is something we can see with other games as well. Obviously, Halo 2 probably being the best example of the developers being like, how are we gonna make this game? They had to cut all this content, and in the developer commentary, you can hear how much they just trash their own game. Ironically, one of the most critically acclaimed games in that series. But I think that's a fair statement to say that developers aren't always satisfied with their project or their content either. And I hope I'm not, being broad in my statements here, but I don't think Treyarch is essentially happy with their Vanguard Zombies attempt either. So that being said, I think that's kind of an olive branch to say, hey, we're all in this together. We all love zombies. We all want zombies to be the best that it can. We get Vanguard probably not meeting consumer demands, but you have to give us a little bit of, you have to understand the circumstances that we're in. That being said, the biggest plot twist in this tweet, he says, but those things, development time, budget, meeting consumer demands, those things should not matter to the person playing the game. They should be able to play it, form an opinion, both positive and or negative, and voice that opinion. How wise and mature is that? He says to the consumers, hey, there's a lot of things you guys don't understand about game development that reflects in the product. But then he's almost talking to the developers and being like, hey, if you put out a product, if you put out content, that's fair game. That's fair game for the consumer, the person you made it for, to give feedback on that. Kind of the risk of development if they hear a criticism of, oh hey, I think this should be in the game, or I think this should be like this, or why isn't this in the game? The developer might want to be like, well, it's because this and that, and budget and development time, and he's saying, hey, consumer doesn't know that. And it's not, they shouldn't have to know that. They shouldn't have to, scale or grade on a curve, if you will, the quality of your game based on your circumstances of developing it. I don't know, that's just a very wise and mature tweet. But, he says, the biggest thing, what hurts him, what troubles him the most, is when people claim the developers have no passion for the game they work on. Now, I've heard this a fair amount throughout the zombies community, but even more so with Cold War and a little bit with Vanguard now as well. I think Vanguard, everyone kind of understands the development time, but more so Cold War, and obviously now with Vanguard coming, I think they're hearing a lot of those things where it's like, Treyarch doesn't care about zombies anymore, or Activision doesn't care about zombies anymore. It's just a cash grab. They don't care about development. They have no more passion. There's been no passion since Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4 and all that stuff, especially around like the atmosphere of each map. I don't know. But if you were one of those people who thought that, if you were one of those people who believed that, he says this could not be further from the truth. And I, for one, completely believe him. There is no evidence, there is no objective way to measure someone's passion for something. Obviously, the content and the quality of whatever content we've gotten in zombies has, in a lot of people's opinion, been decreased compared to X, Y, and Z of the game's past, whatever, but that still is not a fair measure of passion. Passion is a very subjective thing. So I don't think it's fair to claim that the developers don't have a passion for it anyway. And, even now, Kevin's saying, no, that's just flat out not true. And he goes even further saying that specific feedback, that is the Achilles heel of that development team, saying that whenever they hear that feedback, that is the hardest feedback to listen to say that you don't care, to say that you have no passion when you are dealing with this development time, when you are dealing with this budget, when you are dealing with all of these different variables, to hear that you just don't care. That must suck. He reassures us saying that they want people to enjoy everything they create. I think this is a very, very good conversation. This is a very fair tweet. This is a very fair thing to say, and I just love it. This is excellent communication. So what to do after this tweet? What are we going to do about this? Obviously, like I've said, he's not specifically talking about Vanguard, but we can very easily apply this sort of mentality to how we talk about Vanguard and Vanguard zombies. So personally, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to be as logical and constructive as I can be. And obviously, do your best. Try not to make it personal. Don't lash out at developers. Don't make these blanket statements saying, oh, just Treyarch doesn't care anymore, or oh, they're just so lazy, because that has no logical basis, and that's a subjective thing, that it's bad feedback. This really made me feel like we're all in this together sort of thing. Like, no one was happy with this. It seems like no one was happy with the circumstances that Vanguard Zombies was developed, and no one's really super satisfied with the project. It seems developers aren't satisfied either, as well as obviously the community. So we're all looking ahead. We're all trying to be the best version we can be. We're all trying to do the best job we can, which it's not just here, it's in life too. Everyone's just trying to be the best version of themselves they can be. So be good to people, be kind to people, don't be too harsh or negative, like be fair as you can be. It's okay to be emotional, it's okay to feel certain things, but the way you communicate that, the way you give that feedback and give that criticism is super, super important. At least, those are my biggest takeaways. Let me know your guys' biggest takeaways in the comment section below or in the Discord server linked in the description. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to check out these two videos, join me on my road to 5,000 subscribers, and as always, stay beautiful.